If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Gibbonville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in VC Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. It's been raining for weeks, but we're going to fight through it and make it all happen. Tyler is back.
Thank goodness.
From Georgia. We're glad you are back.
Maybe Vanessa will listen again.
He is the CEO and founder of the GOAT family of brands.
Good to be on, yes.
Tyler Burnett.
Glad to be back.
I got to ride with him today.
Whoa.
Mile a minute. A phone call, a mile a minute. So much fun. To the left.
I get cut out of those.
All the way from Brentwood. We call him the LinkedIn Whisperer. He's the calming force to our show. John Byers. John, we're so glad you're at the table today.
Has a great T-shirt on today.
It was.
It's not a T-shirt. It's a long sleeve button up.
This is very fitting for our topic today, which I will share in a moment.
We've got a great show.
Very excited.
We've got a great show for you today. We're going to serve it up as always in a way that you can get it. We know we're the stages of life, stages of career. 20s get in, 30s move up, 40s stay in, 50s you finally ask yourself, what do you really want? We hope that happens for you today. And then as always, the GOAT, coming out of the genius of Tyler Burnett, the GOAT. In sports, it's easy to see it's people that are recognized for their greatness. What they do elevates the play around them and those around them. But in business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. What they do gives them energy. It gives other people energy, creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. We're glad you decided to stop by and see us on a quick cast, a car ride to work and car ride home. We've got a great show for you today. We fought with the title of this. We wrestled with the title, and we landed on this idea of Tradeoffs Suck.
Yeah.
That's very negative, but I'm going to let you go with that.
Yeah.
I'll let you go with that today, and we're going to start with your shirt. We're going to start with your shirt and why your shirt is representative of an idea that trade-offs suck. It's a bigger idea than just trade-offs suck. Trade-offs do suck.
They do.
Right? But you're speaking to a larger issue that's happening right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, and so let me also just say thanks to our partners and good friends over at Dev Digital who, when you think about Nashville and you think about energy, you think about Dev Digital.
One word.
And they're fantastic, grateful for them, so go check them out. Anything you need from your digital world and SEO, seek out our friends at devdigital.com. So my shirt, as we've come to be, I try to nail the shirt to make it fitting for whatever episode and topic. And so as we talk about this idea that trade-offs suck, one of the other things I thought is that work-life balance doesn't really exist. We're going to talk about that. But I love this shirt because this has become my favorite Zoom virtual conference shirt.
Yeah.
It kind of fits the work, kind of fits
the party,
the personal. I can go
Man, it looks so good.
The brand is Poncho.
Poncho.
I love it.
It has been raining, so we definitely need to wear the poncho.
Check out Poncho. Now, it is a fishing outdoor shirt. Doesn't necessarily fit me in that way. It's just super comfortable. I've got these magnetic buttons here. If you have a pacemaker, you can't wear it. It tells you right here on this secret pocket.
Really?
But it's very, very nice, and it's comfortable. And so check out our friends at Poncho.
Magnetic buttons.
Yes. Wow. Work-life balance shirt here.
Well, we're all sold and told that we can have it all. Right?
Who says that?
Well, all the motivational
Tony Robbins,
all the motivational speakers,
they
all say you can have it all, and they
it's
all
true.
They all are liars, right? And so this episode is dedicated to this idea that motivational speakers, high performers, famous people tell us that we can have it all in every way that we want, right? But in reality, in where you are in your life, where you have been and continue to go in your life, and certainly in my life, we realize that trade-offs are part of our life.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think back to you were gracious enough last week to invite me to the.
Yeah, thank you for the invite on that. You wonder why you're left out of the ride, okay? I mean,
Well, he calls me back. I called you like 8 times to invite you.
there's no way.
first.
I'll pull it up. There's no way. I don't.
But
even,
we did have a nice time at the Virgin Hotel, hanging out with all the
I
celebrities.
heard you had a great time.
It was a
In
good
fact,
time.
we pull up there and they said, "Are you on the VIP?" We both said yes. Turns out we weren't.
We weren't. I don't know how that. Do they know who we are?
Well, at least not yet. But one of the things that we talked about during our time there down at the Virgin Hotel for the NFL draft party for the Titans was that there's continual trades. And that
So many. Every draft, there's so many.
and I said to you, John, do you feel like your life is on the clock? Because mine does. I constantly feel like my life is on the clock. I've got to trade one thing to get to another thing, and I've got to trade off this to get to that. And so that's kind of why we think about this idea that trade-offs, there always are consequences.
Yeah.
There's always give and take. And what you're suggesting is, even though the motivational and famous speakers say that you can have it all, what you're suggesting is that that's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah,
and that's
so-
something we want to share with our audience today.
Yeah, and I love this idea. In fact, I remember the moment, very few times in my life do I remember, I read, love lots of quotes. I remember the moment that I was listening to the radio. I was on my bike. It was 6:30 a.m., 2012.
Wow.
And
That's some serious clarity.
there was an interview that had just been done by a lady named Shonda Rhimes, highly successful TV producer, and it marked me so much that I remember the moment, right? And she's in this interview. She's highly successful, created Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder. I mean, these highly sought after TV shows, actors, and she says, as you try to figure out the impossible task of juggling work and family. And you hear over and over again, as you just said, that you just need a lot of help, or you just need to get organized, or work a little harder because you can have it all.
Yeah.
She says, as a successful woman, a single mother of 3, she's doing all this, by the way, who constantly gets asked, how do you do it all? She gave one of the best answers I think I've ever heard. And it was very simple. She said, I don't.
I don't.
At any given moment, now I'm paraphrasing, that was essentially the quote, but what she meant by when they asked her, she said, at any given moment, if Meredith Grey on Grey's Anatomy is having a standout role, or she's winning awards, or this show is being highlighted in every magazine all over the planet, my kids, my 3 kids are suffering because I'm giving my best to my work. And if I'm with my kids and I'm giving my best to my kids, or they're struggling, or they have questions, or they need dating advice, or whatever it may be, my work is suffering.
Yeah.
At any given moment, something in my world is suffering. And now you could look at that and say, well, that's a pretty negative approach. And I didn't take that away from it. So that's what I thought about. I think we'll unpack that a little more. But I think one of the things, if we had Shonda in here on the show,
Wish we could.
and we may,
Yeah.
I think she would tell us. She would say trade-offs suck, and if we focus on work-life balance, we'll constantly miss the mark. So what do we do? There's a practical takeaway. Maybe we'll get that to the end, but I think for me, what I think she would tell us is a practical takeaway. Stay tuned.
Wow. Well, one of the things that you said in that very fun and entertaining evening down at the Virgin Hotel with the Titans draft.
I did the turf there, so did y'all check that out?
So proud of you.
We did.
Yeah. It was beautiful.
It was not. We were not in the VIP area, so we will check it out next time. But
It's true.
is that you said if you're killed? What I've realized. This is what you said to me. What I've realized, if I'm killing it in one area, that I'm dying in another.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that in my 30s. In my 30s, what I just thought was that I'll keep killing it 24 hours a day. And at some point you wake up and you're burned out and you're overwhelmed. And you say to yourself, how did I end up where I did? Did you have that moment? Has that happened for you?
Oh my gosh. And by the way, we got to share goats because I'm excited about mine, but I'll come back to it and answer your question right now. I feel that, so I've talked about in the past how I have done some triathlons, and I've got a race coming up in 3 weeks. And so I'm kind of at this peak of my training, and I never feel it more than I do at this very moment in my life. And I don't like it, but I feel like at any given moment, something is suffering. I'm sacrificing something else in my life that I don't want to, whether it's a relationship with my wife, my kids, my work, sleep, training. If I'm hanging out with my kids, which I love to do sometimes, then I'm not training, and yet that feels heavy to me. Or if I have to get up like this morning at 4 a.m.
There's so many irons in the fire. It's just...
Yeah, if I had to get up this morning super early, right, to get a workout in because I have to go out of town after this we're recording, like it's just heavy all the time, and I feel like that in this moment.
Do you suffer from that? Based on what I see,
I don't feel any burnout right now, but I am 30. I'll be 32 on Sunday. That's maybe has a little bit to do with it.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
May 9th.
May 9th. Same day as Mother's Day this year.
Yeah, that's tough. Huh?
Yeah, it's tough. I don't get any
No
glory.
love.
I just pass it straight on to Mom.
Good call.
And my wife. But I don't know that I feel burnout, but there's plenty of times like within my business where I'm focusing so heavy on relationship and sales that I see operations not getting the attention and feel the burden, like from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's, golly, we've got to get better from an operations standpoint because in my business, sales are important.
It's the balance of working on your business and versus in your business.
For sure.
Right?
And right now, I'm still, it's Goat Turf is Tyler Burnett from a sales and a relationship aspect, and they want to call me and my cell phone, and that's great. But the operation, with my business, if I sell $7 million this year, but I only install 4, the business is really going to suffer. So it's a unique approach daily to how much time is involved in sales versus operations. And I do when I'm more in sales, I feel operations is dying. And when you get to operations, if you fix a whole week on it, when you need to sell, we need to sell 125 grand a week, and you don't sell anything, then sales is dying. So it's a unique perspective.
It's tough.
Did you see what just happened here? I asked him about work-life balance, and guess what he talked to me about?
Work
Yes!
balance. It was work balance answer, wasn't it?
Work balance. Hence the name of the show.
Yes.
Not Tradeoffs Suck, but work balance. But he just proved my point.
Yeah.
This is exactly where I was.
Yeah.
I felt very little remorse because in our 30s, in terms of balance.
But I told myself one thing, right?
Yeah.
I committed to myself when I left the car manufacturer.
North America.
I committed myself to a couple of things, and one was that I wanted more opportunity for me and my family.
Number one, you're never going back.
I sure hope not.
Number two.
Never say never. And then I wanted to create more opportunity for other people as well.
Right.
And I knew to do that, I had to trade off some things.
Yeah.
More time with my family, more time with my wife, more time training. And I'm kind of trying to go through that battle in my head right now is, do I get up earlier and work out? What am I willing to sacrifice?
Yeah.
Me and Sarah talked about this years ago. We said, we can drive a Lamborghini if we want. What are you willing to give up? What is so important for you to have? Because you got to give something up.
Trade off.
You have to trade it off. So I said, hey, you want to go rent a trailer? We can drive a Lamborghini around. I mean, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way we think about stuff all the time is that, okay, we say we want this, but are we willing to give up X, Y, and Z to have A, B, and C? So I love the way you kind of approach it. You got to understand, and the older I get, the more I realize that I can't be good at everything.
Yeah.
And what's my priority list, I guess, in a sense. And I'm really trying to do that in my work, like we're talking about now, but also my work life too. And that's kind of part of, I know we joke about the Sprinter a little bit, but that's why I got the Sprinter.
Yeah.
Is because I'm not willing to sacrifice performance, but I'm also not willing to continue working until 8 o'clock every night. So for me, if we're talking about work-life balance.
Tell the audience about the Sprinter. I think it's a great business move, and I think it gives you both work balance, which I think now we can. John is going to be known from now on as the work balance guy.
Got it.
All right.
Whisperer. Work whisperer.
So work.
Well, I think
why did you do it?
I timed myself for 4 weeks, and
this is a great story.
While I was driving, and the least amount of time in a 1 week was 12 and a half hours of driving. So I said, man, 12 and a half hours. What could I do with 12 and a half hours of time?
Yeah.
It's a third of a work week, a normal work week.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just started thinking, what in the world? One week I drove 16 hours, 45 minutes one week. Because, I would go and so it's weird. We go back to the work balance, right? Sales and operations. So if I can do more on the road, I can spend more time with operations and sales.
Yeah.
Yesterday I went to 8 quotes, got all 8 quotes done, all submitted the same day that I went, and came back home and had 12 emails at 5 o'clock when I got back to the shop. Never could have done that before.
Typically, how many would you have when you come back?
150.
And would you answer them before you left?
I would try to do everything possible, and I would get down to a number or a time that I thought, okay, I can't sacrifice my family anymore, but I would still go to my family, but I still wouldn't be present.
Yeah.
I would still be on my phone, and you guys have been there.
Yeah.
And so I just said something's got to – number one, I want to enjoy what I do. I don't want to get burnt out.
Yep.
And so for that, I said, well, okay, I can use this to get more done in less time. I can use it for relationships. I can use it for enjoyment with my family. When I picked up my kids the first day that I got it, and I took them to Abigail's softball game, and they were watching TV and listening to music driving down the road, they thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Sure it is.
And so when I can give them that, and I can get the value at work and relationships, going to an architect firm and picking them up for lunch, and we ride together to lunch and then come back together, I just think the intimacy is different. Right, then just meet me at the restaurant.
So there's a practical takeaway.
That's it.
He looked at the problem with a different perspective and experience and education and said, I'm going to solve this in a way that's going to create new levels of opportunity.
Yeah. And here's what Shonda would say, I think, if this is what I was getting to earlier, and I think that's a great example of it. I think Shonda would say, give 100% of who you are at whatever moment you're sitting in. So if you're sitting in the Sprinter with your kids going to lunch, 100% focus on them at that moment. James Clear, who I've talked about before, Atomic Habits, love his book. He has a quote in there, and he says, our lives are purchased by where we spend our attention. And so I wrote this. I said, if that's true, if our lives are purchased by where we spend our attention, we need to balance the budget often, reevaluate, have others weigh in, which are those impacted by our spend, right? Constantly live in refinement. That's how I put it. And I think James Clear nails it. Our lives are purchased by where we spend our attention at whatever moment we're living in at the moment.
So fiscally responsible Republican right here, ladies and gentlemen. Balance the budget.
We just lost half the audience.
I love that.
And I'm going to go ahead to my GOAT.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my wife, Sara Burnett.
For bringing the balance.
And what you just said is what she's so good at, and what I'm not good at is that whatever she's involved in right then, she gives 110%.
She's not the person that you're talking to, and she's like looking over your shoulder, like who's next?
Well,
Where can I go?
her phone could ring 6.
I love those people.
We could be watching a movie with the kids, and her phone could ring 6 times, and she's not even going to look at it.
Wow.
I would take all 6 calls.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's because I'm scared I'm going to miss something, or I just know that's what led to a lot of my success into my 32 year is that I'm the guy you can count on to answer the phone.
Yeah.
Now, email, maybe not so much.
Go Sara Burnett.
So Sara Burnett.
And she was, let's hit this too. She was a single mother with 3 kids when I met her.
Her and
So
Shonda.
I think that's something that gets built into you when you just have to figure it out, and you just have to. There's no option, right? There's nobody else to fall back on.
There's no playbook for that.
And so I think that's what's helped her a lot now. She probably wouldn't think about it like this, but if she could go back and look and see where she is now and her unique experiences in her life, one of the reasons she is such a great mother and wife is because she's had to go through those times.
Yeah.
So
balance the budget often. What's the last part to that? Balance the budget often.
So if our lives are purchased by where we spend our attention, James Clear.
Yep.
This
is your response.
How I wrote it is as a response to that is, if that's true, we need to balance the budget often, reevaluate, have others weigh in, which are those impacted by our spend.
Love it.
And constantly live in refinement.
Well, I think we don't do a good enough job of understanding where we want to put our time, like you're saying. We just kind of go through the day and just do it, right? We just say, oh, I got to train today.
Yeah.
We don't say, okay, over the next month or over the next week, I'm training this.
Yeah.
This is what I'm training. We don't kind of create our schedule well enough, as most people. I know that I don't.
So that's a great segue to my goat. And I kind of like the fact that we're doing goats at the end here, because that's not normally what we do. So we're going a little off script, but I like it. I mean, we had a good thing going. We had a good thing going. So Peter Gibbons, from one of my favorite movies of all time, Office Space. If you have not seen it, please don't tell me, because we won't be able to be friends anymore. So many great lines from Office Space. That's my stapler. TPA reports.
TPC. TPA?
It's TPA reports.
TPA.
I thought we were friends. The O-face, you have to watch for that one. But here's one of my favorite lines from Peter Gibbons, and I think it sums up this whole thing so well. He says, human beings were not meant to sit in cubicles staring at computer screens all day, filling out useless forms and listening to 8 different bosses drone on about mission statements. He has this Jerry Maguire moment in the movie.
Bringing it full circle.
Where he says, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. His life was suffering because he was so focused on his work, which he felt like meaningless, but he was trapped in this circle where he had to be there at certain times. And when he finally gets raw and honest about it, if you've seen the movie, the bosses, like, love him. They love him. They, like, want to promote him. He's like, yeah, I come in 15 minutes late every day. I zone out for an hour, this and that. I probably work about 15 minutes a day. And they're like, you've got leadership potential. Like, that's what they say, right? Like, but I think when we become our true selves, we have that Jerry Maguire moment. Peter Gibbons, Office Space, and, one of the best scenes where they, have the cage match with the fax machine. If kids, you can look that up in the encyclopedia, what a fax machine is.
That's right. Well, so maybe he does have it all. Maybe
he finally did.
Maybe he does have it all, which leads right into a great segue into my goat. My goat is Miller Forrestal.
Oh,
do we know who he is?
Zero idea.
He is the former tight end for the University of Alabama that just signed with the Tennessee Titans.
Miller
Forrestal, no trade-off there. You can have it all. Goes straight from the greatest of all time in Alabama to the greatest of all time, in my opinion, professional football.
Oh, wow.
Team there, the NFL.
That might be a stretch,
but the NFL Tennessee Titans.
Always striving. We're striving.
And that came from our time at the Virgin at the party.
That was a special
night. At the
night.
draft party. That was a special night. Let's go to practical takeaways. Yours is obviously buying that car, buying the Sprinter, taking that time, using it to your greatest advantage. Work balance led to more work-life balance.
And, there's another thing I can throw in there, too. Probably my most important pickup in business is Single Ops. Single Ops is my landscape solutions software that I use.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love those guys. Shout out to Single Ops. I've done a podcast with them as well. They're freaking awesome. What that's allowed me to do and the organization for the whole team, that's been a huge blessing for us and some of the work balance like we talked about.
I like that. We got a new term, work balance. My practical takeaway comes from something that you taught me a couple months ago in a previous episode, is if you get up at 4:30 and you work out at 5, then you capture that time that almost replicates an entire extra month of work.
A year. 2 extra hours in the mornings, an extra month a year.
Yeah. That's a great takeaway. 2 extra hours in the morning is a month a year. And so I will go and do that now. I will work out. I'm committed to doing that. And then I've got that extra hour to get all those emails out on the front end or do the creative things that I want to do on the front end.
Yesterday was a great example of that. Got up early, got to the shop, and I looked down at my clock, and I was pretty much caught up on everything, and it was 9:15, and I was like, let's go. I'm winning this freaking day.
Yeah.
And I think to tack on to exactly what you two said, and I'll reiterate what I think Shonda Rhimes would tell us is whatever moment we're in, whether it's those 2 hours that you get up early, the worst thing you could do is get up 2 hours early and waste it.
Absolutely.
Right? Or have that time with your kids in the Sprinter going to lunch, and you're on your phone going to work, doing work stuff while they're in the car, right? Like, because we can't do both. I can't, at least. I used to pride myself in being a master multitasker until I realized that's just me doing a lot of things, not getting my very best all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do for myself, and the takeaway for me is a reminder to myself, 100% of the moment that I'm in, whether it's with work, training, my wife, my kids, right here in VCE Studios.
In Nashville,
100%.
Tennessee. Well, here's where we're going to land the plane today. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that work-life balance starts with work-work balance. And if you're looking for a place to start there. For John and Tyler, I'm Colby Gibbonville, and this is the Go Consulting Podcast.
Boom.